Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. We're back today talking about a little bit of a concept that we've just gone through on this week's podcast. If you want to listen to it in more detail, head over there and check it out so you can hear what we're talking about in its full concept. But essentially what we're going to be talking about today is picking your right takedowns for your opponent or for the situation. So I think we're going to talk a little bit today in the first instance about dealing with people at different levels. And that can be either your opponent's presenting a different level to you and matching that level, or you're dealing with a taller opponent, which also ties in with somebody being super upright. We talked about this a little bit last week as well, where we were talking about dealing with a collar and somebody being really upright. That might be a good opportunity to come down and start attacking your doubles, whereas if their head is lower than you, that's your opportunity to start coming in and looking at your snap downs from the head calls and that sort of stuff, isn't it? So when somebody's taller than you, or they've got like a higher posture, what's your automatic reaction that you want to be looking for from there? So if somebody's super upright, or they're being resistant to your collar and they're being super upright, what's the best way that you're going to try and look to deal with that?
For me, typically, I'm going to be getting underneath the hips if I can, trying to off balance them using shoulders, playing with the arms. Or if I notice that their arms are going super tight here as well, so I can't really arm drag, I'm going to be manipulating the shoulders, trying to get me opening to come in here. Or I'm going to try and put a lot of weight through one of the arms, trying to get some sort of reaction there from them as well.
So when we're looking at the position that me as the tall guy, or the person who's being really upright is presenting, I'm very much stacked over my own hips. It's very difficult for me to try and influence my balance. If I start pushing me and manipulating my shoulders, all my centre of gravity is right over the top here. A much more advantageous position for keeping your balance would be to have your hips down and low in that traditional wrestling style stance. It's a lot more difficult to get pushed over here from this position. You've got some of your weight behind your hips, you've got your shoulders in level with your toes, and it's really difficult to get pushed back and forth. You can start working with that as a reaction, so size down in a good base there. If I start pushing and snapping, and I'm looking for that reaction, then I can come in and start hitting my takedowns like this. But generally, this is a pretty bad position to be in from a defensive point of view, isn't it? As you quite rightly said, you can start manipulating the balance really easily, looking at the arm drags, snap downs, double legs. And then I suppose in the inverse, if somebody's playing like a low guard and they've decided that this super upright position isn't good for them, what are you going to do with dealing with if somebody's down in a low position like this?
Typically for me, I'm going to be looking to try and control the head, finding that snap down, or coming here, trying to circle away to one of the sides, trying to create an angle but controlling the direction that the head goes in. So if Bond does try and turn it towards me, I can then start to move it around and start trying to find the head and take that snap down posture. Or pull, they shoot up with that posture and dive underneath as well.
In this position, are arm drags a good option to look at, or is that more something for when you're dealing with somebody who's a bit more upright?
Probably go a bit more upright, but they're still going to cause some sort of reaction where you can then start to just really try and pull them, cause some sort of pullback, and then you can step into the space there, or use it to bring their head even lower, and then finding the chin off the back of that as well.
Another good option that you can play from here as well, if you can get your opponent low and get them to stagger a foot in, you can start playing this ankle pick style of game, where if you can get their head over the top of the toe and run them in on there, you can start playing this sort of stuff as well. It's a little bit more, even though it seems like it might be a more available option when the person's super upright, because they've got more movement in the feet here, it's going to be very difficult for me to go and start playing this ankle pick sort of game because I've got nothing to tie on. So if he's being really strong here, it's a pretty stupid idea for me to try and go down for an ankle pick, because now he's just going to start playing his front headlock game from there, yeah? Which is, if he's super tall, probably more so what he's looking at.
Another option as well tends to be when there's a weight disparity difference between the players. So if you're wrestling against a heavier opponent, typically might be a little bit taller, what would you go for?
So trying to play like head collar stuff is really difficult to try and sort of do, but you need to try and break that base down, because you don't want to be shooting on a guy who's bigger and heavier and taller than you. If you're ending up underneath some sprawled hips, if you've got a quick sprawl on the hips, you're going to have a problem. Hitting those arm drags and trying to manipulate the balance, maybe trying to get around to the back on the weak side, and then attacking on singles is a better option and a safer option on a bigger guy. But really you're looking for those safe options that are low risk. So if you can start to try and break down the posture and get a front headlock, I think an ankle pick's quite a nice one, especially with top heavy guys. You like to be forward in using that upper body weight. You can use that to your advantage to start pulling them down. If they've got a lot of upper body mass, if you can get that weight in front of their toes, hit that ankle pick is a good option because they've got so much of the weight over the front of their hips, it's hard for them to bounce in that direction. They're very settled for any pushing back action. It's going to be hard for you to do that, so pulling them in might be your best course of action there.
Another option that I tend to try and play with is I'm going to try and get in on the hips as well, whether that's circling round and getting to the underhook and starting to control the hips here, where you can go for some running knee taps, pop round to the back and start attacking from there, and just sort of focusing on trying to avoid that shot in, especially if there's a 15-20 kilo plus weight, where as soon as you shoot in, that hip comes in and you just hit the brick wall and bounce off.
Now we talked about it a little bit in the podcast as well, but Jiu-Jitsu is kind of an evolution of a constantly changing point of balance. So you've got to read where your opponent's balance is and try and react appropriately to that. And if you can dictate where their balance is by playing your arm drags, manipulating with their head position, both ends of the spine, if you can get that head control or the hip control, you've got a good influence over their balance and where their weight distribution is, and you're going to be much more likely to have a successful takedown off the back of that.
So we've got Bonafide PT, coached by Si with the Grapplers Academy. Make sure you tune in next week and drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's video.